they have a lot in common. McConnell fought against regulating the tobacco industry every chance he got. Dude loved cigarettes. He's fought against things like letting the FDA oversee tobacco and banning smoking on airplanes. Wow, Mitch, wrong side of that one. A 2019 NPR investigation found that McConnell had, for decades, publicly denied that there was a link between tobacco use and adverse health effects, sometimes repeating tobacco industry-generated talking points verbatim. And in millions of recently public tobacco industry documents that are searchable online, McConnell's name comes up again and again as a friend of the industry.
So funny too, Aaron, because McConnell, who has never been much of a smoker, if a smoker at all, told the Wall Street Journal in 2015 after John Boehner retired that he missed Boehner but was enjoying, quote, the much clearer air now, that Boehner's smoke no longer wafts through the Capitol. But I digress.
We understand and should use drugs that are prescribed for mental health problems. So the idea that conditions like depression and anxiety and psychosis are caused by an abnormality of a chemical in the brain, a theory that became known as the chemical imbalance theory of mental disorders, started back in the 1960s. There were also suggestions that the brain chemical called serotonin might be relevant in depression and might be a feasible target of drug treatment. And in the 1990s, when a new range of drugs were brought in for the treatment of depression that targeted the serotonin system, this idea that depression was caused by an abnormality of serotonin was revived and publicized in a massive
Under the Vaccine Act, you cannot sue a vaccine company for injuring you, no matter how negligent they were, no matter how reckless they were, no matter how grievous your injury, you cannot sue them. The only exception to that is if they knew of an injury that is caused by their vaccine and they failed to list it on their manufacturer's insert. All vaccines that are recommended, officially recommended for children, get liability protection, even if an adult gets that vaccine. That's why they're going after kids.
But the double-blind controlled trial is what's used for the initial approval of virtually all vaccines, to my knowledge. And we live in 2021 in most of the Western world in a place where we don't have to think about deaths from measles or deaths from diarrhea or pediatric pneumonia deaths. So you kind of have that luxury. So it's all out of sight, out of mind.
Or even evil, but they're not stupid. So why would they stash their cure away from their main customers, the Departments of Health or private insurance companies willing to fund new, effective treatments? Proponents of the big cancer plot may contend that a definitive cure for cancer may erode revenue from existing therapies. But let's take a look at those existing therapies, shall we? Most cancer types are now treated with chemotherapy or more innovative compounds such as tyrosine kinase inhibitors, monoclonal antibodies, or immuno-oncology regimens. All of these therapies have in common the fact that the patients initially show some response and the size of their primary tumors and metastases begin to shrink. A fraction of them may experience complete remission. Sadly, a large percentage will experience tumor progression after some years or just months on therapy. When a treatment fails, normally a doctor would prescribe a second-line therapy and then a third line and a fourth if available. Each subsequent line of therapy would normally be manufactured by a different company, meaning that no individual pharma player will gain revenue from the entire treatment pathway. But
the book comes out August 24th and is an absolutely fascinating read into addiction and ways to treat various types of addiction. I've read the book cover to cover, and all I'll tell you is that at the very first chapter and throughout, you are going to be absolutely blown away. The stories about her patients are extremely engaging. It brings forward the real struggle of addiction and the incredible, I think it's fair to say, heroic battles that people fight in order to get through addictions of various kinds. And all of that is woven through with story, with science, in ways that make it very accessible to anyone, whether or not you have a science background or not. I can't recommend it highly enough. So again, the book is Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Indulgence. It comes out August 24th of this year, 2021. And you can pre-order that book by going to Amazon. We will provide a link to that in the show caption. Before we begin, I just want to mention that this podcast is separate from my teaching and